All right, so I'm going to be talking about the topic, when does your leadership journey begin? I want to start out by saying thank you to everyone for giving me such a privilege and opportunity to be able to talk about this topic. So, when does your leadership journey begin? That's the $1 million question for the moment. And before I talk about when your leadership journey begins, I think it's important to really define what leadership is. Now, I put this question to ChatGPT, and this was the interesting answer that ChatGPT gave to me. Leadership is the process of guiding and influencing individuals or a group of people to achieve a common goal or objective. It involves the ability to motivate, inspire, and provide direction to others in a specific position or title. It can be exhibited by individuals at all levels of an organization or in various aspects of life. And now my focus is on the fact that it can be exhibited at all levels. So leadership is just not a position, it's just not a title when you are a CEO. At the very least of the ladder of a particular organization, leadership traits can actually be exhibited. And in my opinion, I believe leadership is one of the biggest needs of our world today. A lot of countries that are struggling, a lot of organizations that are struggling. Primarily, the reason why this is happening is basically because there is a failure in leadership. And so, when there's a failure in leadership, there's a failure in almost every aspect of life. And I want you to think about leadership as being beyond just an organizational level. In your family, you could be a leader. Amongst your siblings, you could be a leader. In your class, you could be a leader. And it's important to learn the dynamics and ropes of leadership. And so the big question is, why should you be a leader? Like we stated earlier, leadership is the platform that allows you to really impact and make a change. You can influence an organization or influence people more easily if you are a leader. Then there is also the sense of achievement and accomplishment that comes with leadership. There's that sense of fulfillment that comes with leadership. And leadership is the fastest way to create a positive change. So if there's a problem, let's say in your organization, in your country, in your family, effective leadership is one of the quickest ways to solve that particular problem. And leadership is also a way to build a strong legacy for yourself. So in history, we read about people like Mahatma Gandhi, we read about people like Martin Luther, we read about people like Malcolm X. All of these great people stood out because of their exceptional leadership. That said, when does your leadership journey start? Does your leadership journey start at the point where you are promoted? Does your leadership journey start at the point when you get a job? Does your leadership journey start at the point when you get an internship role? Does your leadership journey start before you get an internship role? Does your leadership journey start when your organization promotes you to the C-level position? I mean, this is a very big question. And I thought about this question for a very long time. When does one's leadership journey actually start? And I got a very good answer. And in my opinion, I believe your leadership journey starts now. So you don't have to wait until you get a position. You don't have to wait until you get a title before your leadership journey starts. Leadership is not just a title or a positional thing. Leadership is a mindset. Leadership is an attitude. And so your leadership journey starts at the point of self-awareness. And I'm going to be talking a bit about this. But one thing I want you to have at the back of your mind as we dive more into this conversation or into this presentation is the fact that your leadership journey starts now. It's not going to start tomorrow. It's not going to start later in the future. It has either started or it's something that should start now. That said, now is the time to develop leadership and show qualities of being a leader. A common conception is you should be given a position before your leadership journey should start. Leadership is not just a title, like I said earlier, it's a responsibility, it's a mindset, it's an attitude. Now, there's this quote my late dad told me. He told me something very interesting. He said, "You don't learn to fight at the battleground, you learn how to fight before the battle." So it's not when you go to war you want to learn the ropes of how to fight in a battle. You actually prepare before you get to the battleground. And I believe some of us that might be interns today, or some of us that might be starting out at some position today, will probably aim to be managers tomorrow or chief executive officers tomorrow. In order to know how to lead people effectively at that stage, the journey to doing that should start now. So your preparation actually starts today. And there's also something that you need to understand. You only step into a leadership position when you've shown potential and initiative. No one is going to give you leadership if you've not exhibited certain traits that requires that you be a leader. Leadership is something that is earned and not something that you should necessarily impose on other people, unless if you are a dictator or a military leader of some sort. And there's another thing that I've stated on my slide, and it's the fact that leaders are made, leaders are not just born. We have far gone past that era when you have to be born to be a leader. I mean, this happened in the monarchy system, but the world is changing rapidly such that you don't have to be born into a royal family for you to be a leader in our world today. So, as a leader, you can be made, and you don't necessarily have to be born into a leadership family. That said, how do I start my leadership journey? How do you start your leadership journey? Um, One of the first things I believe in terms of starting your leadership journey is that you should first have a vision for what you want to become. You need to know your purpose in life. You need to have a vision of what you want to become. Having a vision of what you want to become is going to go a long way to determine the kind of things that you need to do in order to be able to prepare for leadership. Now, I know saying having a vision sounds a bit vague, right? But in order to be able to have a vision, what are the things you need to put in place? I mean, how do you have a vision? How do you talk to someone and tell them you need to have a vision? So I've tried to break it down so that it's going to be somewhat easy for some people to follow. First off, vision is you should have a vision of what it is that you want to do. So, do you want to be the president of your country? Do you want to be the CEO of the next unicorn in your country? Do you want to um, employ 50 people in the next 5 or 10 years? Whatever it is, have a vision or a sense of what it is that you would like to do. This is a way to help you have a vision. Have a vision of where you see yourself, right? In the next 5 years, what do you see yourself doing? In the next 10 years, what do you see yourself doing? I'm going to tell you a story. I think some 5 years ago, or I think 7 years ago, thereabouts, I was a software engineer back in Nigeria for one of the biggest tech companies in Nigeria. The name of the company is Andela. You probably know about the organization. At the time while I was a software engineer, I told some of my colleagues that I was going to be switching from core software engineering into product management. At that time, it did not make sense because lots of software engineers were being poached. People were giving software engineers bigger salaries. Lots of foreign companies were poaching out to Nigerian software engineers. But it did not make sense at the time because switching from software engineering to product management will, number one, mean I would have to take a pay cut. It will also mean that I would have to work for a local company and be earning in my local currency as opposed to earning in foreign currency, in which what was something my colleagues were doing at the time. But the reason I did that was because I saw 5 years from that time. And 5 years from that time, I told myself I wanted to be in the room where the decisions are being made. And the quickest route to get there was to go through the product management route as opposed to staying in the software engineering track. There were other reasons too that also informed my decision. But the point is, I saw what I wanted to do in 5 years, and that informed my decision. It looked foolish at the time, but just looking back, I do not regret making that decision. A lot of my colleagues that thought I was crazy at the time, I mean, some of them would almost want to pay to get me in the room to help them analyze their product or to do some sort of analysis for them, right? And the reason why I could do that was because I saw a vision of where I wanted to go. And the fact that I saw a vision of where I wanted to go, that informed the kind of decisions I made, that informed the kind of books I was reading, that informed the kind of conferences I was going for, that informed the kind of connections I was making at the time. Another thing is to help you define your vision is to know what kind of problems you want to solve. Do you want to solve the problem of, let's say, poverty in your country? Do you want to solve the problem of how people order food online? So have a vision of the problems you want to solve. That will help you define your vision. Then next up, I said your leadership journey starts now. How do you learn how to be a leader? How do you learn the ropes of leadership? You should start learning how to influence people. It was John Maxwell that said, "He that thinketh he leadeth and no one is following is only taking a walk." So you must learn how to influence people. I read this from a John Maxwell book years ago, and I said, in order for me to be a leader, I must learn how to influence people. Now, I wasn't a product manager in an organization. I wasn't managing people under me in a company. However, I had two siblings, and I said to myself, I'm going to use these guys as a case study. And I started to learn leadership by influencing my siblings. So I started to positively influence them, changing their mindset on certain things, learning how to allow people follow me. So you can learn that act of influencing people today. And in order to be able to influence people, you need to be able to demonstrate emotional intelligence. I don't have enough time to talk about emotional intelligence on this or in this conference. However, if you want to learn how to influence people, if there's an area you need to start to look at is to look at emotional intelligence. You should be able to read people. You should be able to understand their problem and also know how to address their problems. Like I said, I probably don't have time to talk about this topic, but I talked about this topic in a great deal in my book. I'm going to be talking about that shortly. So you can get the book and read about emotional intelligence and learn the ropes of how to influence people. Then next up, start from where you are. A lot of people think that they need to be given a title, like I said, to be able to start their leadership journey. But no, you should start from where you are. Like I said previously, I started to learn about leadership by first of influencing just two of my siblings, and from there, learning how to influence my friends positively. So you start from where you are. Don't wait for an opportunity, leverage those around you. Then, next up, take initiatives where you are. Now, one of the ways to rise quickly to leadership is by taking initiatives and solving problems. What do I mean? You are in a team, you are in a group, they give you guys an assignment. If everyone is shying away from it, be the person that steps up and be the person that takes responsibility. I remember when I was in the university, some lecturers usually give us very difficult assignments and give us in small groups, sometimes maybe in a group of 5 people, in a group of 6, in a group of 7. And on one of those occasions, one of our lecturers gave us an assignment to do some sort of programming task. I was studying physics at the time, so I wasn't even very skilled in programming. But I said, do you know what? I'm going to take up this task. I started to do some research and I knew the topic a bit. I wrote the code, I wrote the program to be able to solve the problem that our lecturer gave us at the time. And quickly, everybody within my team started to look up to me for counsel, started to look up to me for guidance. So everybody in my team were asking, hey, Seun, what should we do? What direction should we take? The reason why people could look up to me at that time was because I took the responsibility to take up a task that no one was willing to take. So look at it where you are right now. You might be, let's say, you might find yourself in the midst of an NGO, you might find yourself in a team, you might find yourself in your own, anywhere, right? Just look at the tasks that people are shying away from. Look at the problem that people are running away from, and make up your mind that you're going to solve that problem. Now, guess what? If you solve that problem, people will look up to you. In fact, when you get a job and you get into an organization, one of the way to get noticed is by solving problem. Now, when you get into a company, one of the questions you should ask yourself is, what are some of the biggest problems of this company? Now, if now some problems might be beyond you, of course, but look for the problem that falls within your jurisdiction that you think you can probably solve. Now, trust me, when you solve that problem, I tell you, the company is going to notice you, the organization is going to notice you, people in other departments will notice you. Now, let me try to break it down a bit. Imagine you get into an organization and it's important for the organization to be able to clock staffs in and clock staffs out. Let's say your organization is struggling with, coming up with that particular initiative of how to clock staffs in and clock them out. And the company has been struggling with this for 2 years. And you get it to the company. Now that's a quick problem you can solve. There are lots of software online, free software online that probably will be able to do this. Or you could just watch some YouTube video that shows you how to solve that particular problem. Now, do your research, and having done your research, you can then present it to your manager and say, hey, manager, we can solve this problem by doing this, by doing that. We don't have to spend extra money to get software. We don't have to invest so much in this. By just doing this, we can solve this problem. Most likely, if your manager is a good manager, your manager will say, yes, let's go that direction. Now, your manager might not say a big thank you to you immediately, but it's going to register something in their mind. As you start solving problems, you start getting noticed. People look at you to say, hey, this guy is a problem solver. Let us then promote him. Being a leader is being the chief problem solver. That's the way I like to put it. Being a leader is being the chief problem solver. Then another thing to do in terms of building your leadership journey is for you to start building your network today. I think it was John Maxwell that said this. He said, your network can influence your net worth. The big question to ask is, who is speaking for me in the room when I'm not in the room? It's important to have a very solid network such that when people are making decisions, when people are making deliberations, there's someone in the room that is speaking for you, even when you are not there. I used to tell people something. We live in a world right now where knowledge is not scarce. It's easy to get knowledge. Let's say you want to be a software engineer, you want to be a product designer, whatever it is you want to be, it's very easy to get knowledge. So you look at Africa, you look at Europe, you look at Asia, you look at America. There are lots of skilled people everywhere. I mean, trust me, there's nothing you think you can do right now that there are probably not 10 people in your area that can do it 10 times better than you. Now, given that we live in a world where there are lots of skilled people everywhere, the next question is, what sets you apart from others? And one of the major things that can set you apart from others is your network. So let's say as an organization, we put out a role to say we want to hire someone to fill up this space. And we have 10 people that are equally qualified. While making deliberations, given that all of these people are equally qualified, what we then set people apart will be the number of people in the room that say, do you know what, let us go for person A as opposed to going for person B. So if you have 10 people in the room that are supposed to make the decision across 10 candidates, the person that is most likely to get picked is the person that has a very solid network with at least 5 people in the room. And that is why it's important for you to start building your network today. And how can you build your network? I mean, what are some of the tips that will help you start building your network today? First off, make sure you establish very good relationship with your existing contacts. The people that you have today on LinkedIn, the people that you have today in your space, the people who are probably looking for job, fellow interns and whatnot, start building solid relationship with them today. Because people that are interns today will definitely be leaders tomorrow. You want to make sure that you have very strong relationship with people, go out on coffee dates, see movies together, exchange ideas, build a very solid relationship with people that you have in your network today. Next up, attend events and conferences. I think I was at a conference in London last year. Trust me, there was nothing that was going to be said in the conference that I probably did not know. There's nothing that they were going to say in the conference that I probably can't watch on YouTube and just have like some quick catch up. I've watched lots of conferences and listened to lots of speakers speak on YouTube. But the primary reason why I left Berlin to travel to London for a conference was because I wanted to get to meet new people and add new people to my network, especially because I just moved to Europe. And so I wanted very solid people in Europe within my network. You can also start networking online. You might not necessarily have the resources to travel for events and conferences, and that is fine. Like we said before, you have to start from where you are. You can start networking with people online, like networking with people on LinkedIn, people within the area that you're interested in. And another way to build a solid network is by having strategic volunteering. No, pay attention to the strategic volunteering. You shouldn't volunteer at every event. You shouldn't volunteer at every NGO. Your volunteering should be very strategic. I was talking with a friend last year that just got to Berlin. The person wanted to get into the product management space. Now, there's a product management event or conference that was happening in Berlin, and they were looking for volunteers to help put the conference together. I said, hey, since you're looking for a role in this space, this is a great place to volunteer. By volunteering, you're going to meet other established product managers, have them within your network, and they can quickly, help you on your journey. So volunteer strategically, look at the area you want to grow in, and volunteer. Most people wouldn't say no to volunteering for free. So this is one of the cheapest ways to build your network. Practice emotional intelligence. I probably can't talk about this, but if you are going to build network with people, you should know how to interact with people. You should know how to listen effectively. You should know how to communicate. You should know how to pay attention to when people are sad and when people are happy. All of these are part of the things that will help you build a bond with other people. There are some other tips I shared in my book I probably can't talk about. So feel free to get that and order that on Amazon. And thank you for listening.